Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Viridius, back with another Hytale discussion. One of the reasons that I find Hytale so intriguing and so exciting is that I often find myself simultaneously wanting to play a blocky survival crafting game in the style of Minecraft, and wanting to play a game with a deep world lore, a strong fantasy theme, and a magic system that goes beyond the rudimentary enchanting and potion system that Minecraft offers. And Hytale looks to offer all of these things and more. With the developers holding back details of exactly how the magic system is going to work for now, I'd like to examine what little we do know, and discuss my hopes and fears for the Hytale magic system. To me, one of the most frustrating things about video game magic is that most developers treat magic as little more than a reskinned gun. It exists as a combat mechanic, but outside of combat, there's virtually no use for it. And this always takes me out of the experience, because to me, magic is the ability to overwrite and control the natural laws of reality that exist. So it should have applications beyond simply throwing fire at an enemy. Worse than that, there's often an internal logic breakdown in these games, when you can, for example, summon a companion to fight for you, but not order that companion to loot the dungeon behind you, or even so much as carry a bag to give you some more inventory space. Now this approach makes sense in games where combat is the sole focus of the game. If you don't interact with the rest of the world, you don't need to see how magic interacts with the rest of the world. But in a game like Hytale, where the player is encouraged to interact with the world in thousands of ways, magic needs to be more than just a combat mechanic. That's why I found it so encouraging when, in a recent interview with the Game Gurus, Hytale project lead Noxy spoke both about combat magic and what he called around-the-house magic, which he suggested could affect things like plant growth. Noxy went on to talk about how they wanted magic to be impactful, comparing it to the magic of Skyrim, which he found unimpactful because it didn't directly affect the world. This to me is an extremely exciting statement, because from my perspective, there are three main pillars upon which good video game magic systems must sit, and developers rarely deliver on all three of them. The first pillar is effectiveness. If the spells you give me are less useful than the alternatives, I'm obviously not going to use them. The second pillar is connection to the lore. Magic should touch as many areas as possible in your game, or there should be a good explanation as to why it doesn't. And the final pillar is presentation. When I cast a high-level magic spell, it should look and feel awesome. Noxy's statements in this interview suggest to me that the Hytale team is aware of all three of these pillars and is working really hard to deliver on all of them. It's exactly what I wanted to hear, but it does come with its own pre-built concerns. You see, I think the reason that most developers fail to deliver on all three of these pillars is that if you do so, it is very difficult to balance the magical paths against the non-magical alternatives. The Hytale development team clearly wants there to be lots of different paths for character development that are all balanced against each other, and not all of these paths contain magic. So how is a non-magic user going to be able to compete with a magic user when magic can directly alter the world around them? Now, one balancing system that might exist within the game is related to the concept art that Hytale has released showing the various magical elements. In that same interview with the Game Gurus, Noxy stated that the class system is at least partially gear-based. If the gear you're wearing does not allow you to access the high-level spells of multiple elements at the same time, this could limit the effectiveness of magic. The trailer showed us both a giant yeti and a flaming beast. I imagine a fire mage would only be effective against one of these two. There's also the classic balancing option of making it so that magic users can't wear armor, thus leaving them vulnerable to high damage attacks. The problem with both of these options is that they are purely combat oriented, and if magic can affect the world in many other ways, even if combat is perfectly balanced between magic and non-magic, the magic users will still have a more attractive path than the non-magic users for players, unless the non-combat applications are also somehow balanced. There is a possibility that magic users may be restricted from accessing some non-combat game features, such as high-level crafting recipes. The downside of this approach is that it runs the risk of keeping magic users from accessing significant areas of gameplay outside of multiplayer. An alternative option would be to give non-magic users access to magic. Giving them the ability to learn spells directly runs the risk of making mixed classes overpowered when compared to pure magic or non-magic paths. But if Hytale implemented some sort of magical technology capable of partially replacing magic, it might make the balance easier to achieve. If a wizard can teleport, and a non-wizard can build a teleport platform, the wizard will still have an advantage over the non-wizard, but the advantage will be smaller and easier to mitigate. The only problem with this approach is that either the magic users would need access to the technology as well, which would defeat some of the purpose, or the developers would have to explain why a sorcerer can't build a teleportation chamber, but a barbarian warrior can. I obviously don't have a perfect answer, but I do trust the Hytale development team to come up with something satisfying. They know more about game development than I do, or I'd probably be developing a game rather than talking about one on YouTube. And they clearly care about delivering a satisfying experience. There is one more bit of encouraging news. In the interview, Noxy said that he couldn't talk too much about the magic system because that could spoil future blog posts. That means we are getting more information on this topic pre-release, and you can bet that once that blog post drops, I'll be right back here with more thoughts to share. Well, that's my take on it. Now I want to hear from you. Are you as excited for the Hytale magic system as I am, or are there other features you're looking forward to more? Also, how do you think the Hytale team should balance magic in the game? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, feel free to let me know how I can improve in the future and what other content you might like to see from me. This is a very new YouTube channel and I value your feedback. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, and if you want to see more Hytale news updates and discussions from me, hit subscribe and click that bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I next upload. But for now, this is Viridius, and I'll see you next time.